Yay! I'm so happy to be here.
This is going to be fun. And for everyone listening to this, this is the lovely Keeley Rankin. She is a leading sex and relationship coach based in San Francisco, and she's been helping men, women, couples overcome intimacy issues since 2010. She is your expert's expert. So she leads educational workshops on male sexual difficulties for therapists and coaches. She's created this amazing video series, which she gave me access to. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And this is all around helping people overcome sexual dysfunction. And you can do it from the convenience of your own home. And if you're curious about that already, you can click down keeleyrankin.com. Just click below and check out her website. Keeley, welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yay! I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited to chat.
I'm excited to chat. This is all very new for me. Like I said in our pre-podcast chat, this is a new area for me. Generally, talking about sex and stuff is pretty new, but I feel like I've had a baptism of fire, as Coupley was a sponsor of a sex event in LA last weekend. It was called Afternoon Delight, run by Dr. Tara. She pulled together a bunch of, actually it was run by Dr. Tara and Nicoletta Heidegger, Sluts and Scholars podcast, and they pulled together like this group of amazing sex experts. And I, as a sponsor, I thought, oh, this is amazing. This is exactly the sort of thing I want to get behind, be in the community, support the community, all of the people that are helping us improve our relationships. But I forgot that I would be there also as a human being, not just a brand.
Right. Yeah, that's the tricky thing about the sex space. It gets you.
Oh,
huh?
yeah. It gets you. It gets you.
Yeah.
And so I also invited some other creators in the relationship space. And I think I was very much so in my business mindset, shaking hands, welcoming everyone in,
Right.
and then sat down and just had this absolute shock and realization, oh shit, I'm here as a participant as well. And this is a participatory event. We start off with doing a sexual meditation, orgasmic moans, and we were right into
Breaking
it.
that ice. Right. Yeah. Right. Oh, wow. How big was the group?
70 people.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. You guys were diving right in.
We were diving right in. But I've learned, I am not going to lie, I learned so much. I got back at 11:30 p.m. on Sunday, and I was like that meme of the man that has the theories, and he's got like bags under his eyes, and he's got the maps behind him with all the string going to everything. And I'm leaning over my girlfriend at 11:30 p.m. at night, trying to give her all this information, just standing over her when she's like lying on a couch, just been on a phone for a few hours. I'm trying to explain all of the things that I've learned in one monologue. And it didn't, I don't think she
Didn't
took
go
it
great.
all in. But she was very excited to discuss more in a better time, but it was an exciting time. So while I'm very new to this, it's been an exciting introduction over the last week and a bit.
You know, it's interesting. I think about this a lot because we're not going to talk about it today, but I talk about, how to find the right sexual practitioner. And in that reflection, I often come to a place of like every single person, I don't care who you are, could have benefit from workshops, training, classes, one-on-one coaching, because the realm of sex has so many layers, which I'm sure you felt, right? It just touches so many aspects of who we are at our core, the joy and the fear, all of it. And I really, truly believe every single person on this planet could benefit, grow from, deepen their experience in life through having access to education around sex. Really, education, self-reflection is so important. Really
Big time. I'm now on this train. I've just got my my packages. It's arrived. Let's go. Emily Nagoski's new book.
Great.
Very excited to read that
It
one.
came out. Yay.
And Rena's book as well, which is also I got to meet her at the event, which was very cool.
Fun. Look at you. You're in now.
I'm in. I just think it's very interesting.
It's an easy entry point. We're a pretty welcoming crowd.
Yeah. I think as well. I read Come As You Are, which is fantastic, and I think that was a good intro and I learned a lot of stuff there. I think it just felt a little bit different when I started to speaking to more people about it, and you just realize, oh gosh, even in our niche, even in the relationship niche, we don't really talk about this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Right.
Like even in relationships, but this is probably like a massive part of everyone's relationship. Even in our niche, this is still like, oh, it's a little chapter in a just one. We sort of like talk around it, but you don't talk around it, Keeley. You talk. You get right in.
I'm gonna take that as a compliment.
It's definitely a compliment.
Yeah,
How do you think?
That speaks to a little bit of my personality. I'm like, let's stop beating around the bush. Can we just get to the point? My poor husband, he's like, I wish sometimes you have a little more tact. It's like, why? We're wasting time. We've got things to do. But yes.
How do you think society views sex overall? And then how does this compare to your view of sex being in this space and helping people since 2010?
Well, I will say I'm in San Francisco, so I am in a slight bubble. And San Francisco, liberal, Western society. So how does society view sex? A very, very complex answer. And, it has so much to do with religion and, that's a really, really complex piece. But I'd say I'll say the issue that I run into the most, that I see that I want to help people shift around in Western society, primarily the people that I'm working with, is the feeling that it's supposed to look a certain way. Our sex, who we are as sexual beings, the sex that we're having, the things that we want, the way that we want them, the way that we, all of these things. I often feel like when I'm talking with people, one of the biggest places that they're stuck in is sort of this like comparison to what they think they're supposed to be, the shame wrapped up because it doesn't quite fit or match who they are, and the grief and loss that they don't know because they've shoved themselves into a box that's so small that doesn't meet their needs. And now they're trying to figure out, how do we make this work? In couples, it looks like, how do we actually talk about sex? And when you grow up in a culture that you just spoke to where we don't talk about sex, it becomes really, really difficult. It's like suddenly now you're married to this person or in a deep relationship and you're supposed to just know how to say all of these things that no one's ever prepared you for. Yeah, I mean, there's this way in which we're sort of set up to be stuck in the box. And so I really think of my work on so many, in so many ways, is just befriending people so that they feel comfortable enough to really start to just talk about things. And then we practice, right? Oh, let's say that again, let's try that again. Like, what would you really want if you had no idea what you were supposed to want? Or how you were supposed to want it. So that's, I guess, my long-winded answer.
We did a survey in Coupley of 2,000 people. So statistically relevant. Yeah. 89% of people said they wanted to be more adventurous in the bedroom.
Yeah, I bet.
43% of people did not feel comfortable having a conversation about sex with their partner.
Yeah, not surprised.
That's a big number.
I'm actually always a little surprised when people say they want to be in my office. Most people don't want to be there. They're there because they want to feel more connected to their sexuality, or they want to feel more free in their sexuality, but they don't actually want to talk about it. And it takes time before that starts to feel comfortable. Their deeper self wants to be there. And the part that's scared, they don't feel comfortable. And I want to just name real quick too, that we as humans are fundamentally set up to avoid what is uncomfortable. Like it's not like you're flawed or you'll never change or you're this odd person that doesn't want to discuss things that are uncomfortable. I mean, we as humans, based in our survival, is to get away from things that are uncomfortable. That's just how it is. And what oftentimes we find is that yes, there's getting away from the uncomfortable, like survival based things. And then there's our brain telling us that we're uncomfortable. This is scary. We shouldn't do it, which isn't, sex can be scary to talk about, but it's not threatening your actual literal survival. And there's so many benefits to unlocking that shame, being able to step into what's truly pleasurable for you.
And
the whole idea.
And what's possible. I think probably the big epiphany I had at this weekend was that they said, hey guys, we share with us your fantasies, and we're going to put them up on the board, and then we're going to help you categorize them. So they were anonymous, but people would put them up on the board. Very interesting things that I would never have thought of. Some fantasy would be like my literal worst nightmare.
Yeah, right. We're all so different. We're all so different.
We're all so different.
Right.
And then they took it through a rubric of like, well, hey, it looks like that you're into these different things. And I've got it here because I was looking at it. But they're like, hey, maybe you're into something around vulnerability or anger or guilt or satisfaction. Maybe it's a euphoria-based thing. And then they went down and were like, okay, well, if this is what you're into, then maybe here are some other things that you're into. And wouldn't it be great to actually invest in this fantasy and try it out? Maybe you'll love it. Maybe you'll be like, I tried it and it was okay, but at least I'm not thinking about this thing I wanted to do sexually for my whole life and then dying without ever doing it.
Right.
And most of us, I think, are on that side. I don't know too many people that really invest in their fantasies, and if they do, we don't talk about it because it's so private.
Right. And I would take the fantasy conversation a little bit further to say, like, when I talk about fantasy, I think of like, just because you want more education, I think of it as like, this side is what you want to do before you die. And this line is like things I never want to do before I die. And like, I'm clear I don't want to do this. Like, it's a risk of safety or, and I actually think of, we want to be able to fill this whole space up within our life. Like, we want to be able to know, like, okay, this is something I definitely want to do before I die. I really want to have sex on the kitchen table, for instance. Like, that's a fantasy of mine. I want to do it. I know I want to do it. And over here is, I want to go to a porn shoot of some sort where things are happening and I'm involved. But it's a fantasy, but you don't actually want to do it. And I think one of the things that gets so scary for couples that I find is that they feel like if they name the fantasy, they have to do it. Like, I told you this thing, and so now we're doing it. Which in a monogamous couple, suddenly you can't name fantasies with anybody else involved because the fear is that your partner's going to think you're going to be cheating or you want to cheat. Versus like fantasies live in this really special, wonderful world in our brains. And not all fantasies are things that people want to act on. They're just things that turn us on.
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot about this at my previous job. I worked at an app called Wattpad, which is a reading and writing app, and it was filled with erotica. Erotica is, by and large, the product of and consumed by ladies, and we understood very quickly that many of these erotica stories were very much so fantasy-based and not something that they actually wanted to experience in real life. But it was very fun to write and read about and think.
Yeah, and you use it to masturbate and you use it to think about when you come. I mean, all of these things, right? Like, I mean, that's really what it is for. It's letting ourselves have that freedom in that space.
Today, we're going to talk a little about, or a lot about male performance issues.
Yeah.
And when did you get into
a big part of that, depending which direction we're going.
Well, let's get into it. How do you break these down? How do you break male performance issues down, Keeley? Right.
Okay. So the three main male performance struggles are premature ejaculation. I call it early ejaculation because it's happening earlier than you want. Then there's delayed ejaculation, which is where you're in the experience and you can't find your orgasm. I often talk about it as people feel like they kind of get stuck in the imaginary scale or from, 1 being I'm aroused, 10 being orgasm, 9 being the point of no return, there's a stuckness that can happen around like 7 or an 8, and you just can't get past that into that higher state of arousal, moving to the orgasm. And then erectile dysfunction, which I think most of Western society knows about because Viagra was the biggest selling drug on the market ever, really. So most of us are quite familiar with that performance struggle.
Keeley, would you be able to? Where's your microphone? Because you're a little quiet. Quiet.
Okay,
is it possible?
Let's see.
Is that okay?
Is that better?
A little bit, yeah. If I can just.
Is that better?
Oh yeah. This is sounding a little bit better. Sorry.
Okay. Is the microphone in the screen, or we're good?
No.
Okay,
No, it's not on
great.
the screen, and it's fine if it is. Absolutely no worries. Thank you.
It's a little funny to be talking about cocks, and then there's like a big black phallus right there. Just not a good look.
It's a great. Or is it the look
or
that we want?
Is it the look we're going for? I've always tried to be mindful of that.
I have mine right here. It's not this is it. This is always out there.
Yours looks round. Mine is very phallic. Looking. Yes.
On the theme of phallicness, let's go through them. And so when you're coaching your clients through this, I'm guessing it's different things for each area. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, very much so. Primarily, folks who struggle with early ejaculation are in an anxiety response during arousal, fight or flight. They've learned being in arousal is uncomfortable, scary, similar to what we talked about before. You're trying to get out of it, get away from it because it doesn't feel good. And so it's a learning how to come back into the body, how to be with your arousal, how to learn to let it flow through you. And ultimately that lands itself in being able to control. Delayed orgasm is a complex beast. I normally say when I start working with clients, like, we got to take the pressure off here. Like, don't expect anything for 6 months. The delayed orgasm, if I were to really, it is, because it's so complex, it's hard to point directly to one thing. Psychologically, it's somewhere between trust, like, can I really trust my body, my partner, this situation, and access to fantasy, as well as the way someone is touching themselves. There again, it's loaded because there can be shame. I mean, there's so much stuff that goes into the delayed orgasm piece. And for folks who've ever struggled with that, they know they can feel it oftentimes, like, oh gosh, this is like, feels like a lot. And then, the ED piece is similar to the delayed, where it can be not quite connected to arousal, not able to move towards what feels good, holding themselves back, not necessarily like being able to feel like, oh, that's pleasurable, I want that, or, oh, I want that, I'm going to go towards it. It can also be a symptom of, the relationship isn't going well, and that person feels humiliated or shamed, or their partner's just not being very nice to them, or they feel a lot of pressure, performance pressure, right? Like, I've got to perform, I've got to do this. You see ED show up a lot, situational ED, with people who are dating, and they go into their first night and they really like someone. It seems to become it's oftentimes a stronger experience for men the more they like someone, and then they suddenly can't perform because they put so much pressure on themselves to be able to get hard and perform because they really like this person. So that's a big component of the ED too.
Do you think that male
and then
issues...
we can't also forget with ED that there is medical pieces that can come in with that. So normally if someone ever comes with ED stuff, I'm like, I need you to go see your primary care doctor. I need you to get a referral to a urologist. Like, let's just rule that out, just so that we're not in the space where it's really actually a medical piece that's happening inside of you. Early signs of heart disease, stuff like that. So anyway, that was really heavy. Okay, shifting topics.
and I mean, and it seems like it's something that people want to just take a pill. Do you think, like, taking Viagra for this stuff, is this like, how much, obviously there's science to it, But is there a little bit of, I've taken Viagra, so that means that my dick is definitely going to work. So now I feel more relaxed knowing that it's going to work, and then it works.
Yeah, the placebo effect, right?
Is it or is it not? I'd really love if people A/B tested that.
So there is a huge impact on the body that the male performance enhancers have. Viagra, Cialis. I think there's one other on the market right now. And for those who have a negative reaction to those medications, they would say, yeah, like, I mean, you can feel your blood moving. You can feel it. It was actually a side effect. It was created for another disease, symptom, or illness. And basically the side effect was everyone was getting erections. So, but there are people who it doesn't work for, that the psychological distress and the fear and the shame and the disconnection and the pressure and all of that is so heavy in that person. It can also sometimes show up with grief, for people who've lost their partners and they're moving on to the next partner. That's a big place that ED can show up. They just don't work. They cannot override the brain. The brain is that strong. It used to be really, really anti-medication. My original training, my master's training is in holistic psychology. And so it was like, no drugs ever. And no one should be taking antidepressants and all these things. And, over the years, I've really learned that sort of narrow lens, that this westernized medication is bad, I've really backed off of it. And every person is very, very different, and every person needs to make the decision for themselves and their mental health. And, I've had a lot of great success with I've had a lot of great success with people who have used performance enhancers while working with me. I know, it was a great slip.
That sentence works either way.
It works great. Right. And I don't feel like it gets in the way of people moving forward. Now, I think if you're struggling with ED and your solution is to only move towards performance enhancers and to not do any work on yourself, and you get stuck in needing to take a $45 pill every time you have sex, because, ED, those medications, they take 45 minutes to set in. They do have side effects. If you don't actually have sex that night, say in that 45 minutes, something happens, God forbid, now you're stuck with this really hard cock and nothing to stick it in. So, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's a solution to what's going on. I'm glad you appreciate my humor.
I like that you said nothing to stick it in and no one to have sex with. It's a very interesting definition there.
You never know what people are doing.
You definitely never know. What would you say are the three most common things that, do you get down to the real roots of the causes for this? Let's cut the medical one aside, because
are we talking
obviously,
ED? Which one are we talking about here?
We're going to talk about ED first,
okay,
and then we're going to go through early ejaculation, and then we'll go to delayed ejaculation. Okay. Is that cool? So with ED, when you get into it in your experience, what seem to be the clusters of reasons that people are suffering from this?
I would say porn, overuse of porn, and the way in which the brain is registering arousal. Oftentimes when people are using porn, they're using it alone. And so it's during solo play. And we suddenly put another person in the space. And there's two ways in which humans are sexual: by themselves or with a partner or partners. And these are very, very different experiences inside the body, psychologically, emotionally, the way we're playing, the things we're playing with. And there is much more pressure oftentimes in the partnered engaged play. So when we use something like porn only to masturbate, and it becomes this crutch, this space, and I think of porn is it's like a super highway to arousal. You can just click and go and jump between videos and have all these things going. And you're not having to do relational exchanges at all with another individual who's going to have expectations and their body makes sounds. And I mean, there's all these other things happening. That can become a really big component for many men. I've seen more recently, and especially with younger men, when younger men present, that can be a thing I'm always questioning, asking, checking in about. The other big cluster is, how is this person letting them, well, we touched briefly, which is, I think, pretty simple for people to understand, as like the relationship is not in a good place. They're feeling emasculated, shamed, just not good enough. There's a lot of fighting, disconnection. And it's kind of actually think of it as like a healthy response to an unhealthy dynamic. I mean, the cock is like, no, thank you. Sorry, my dog is just trying to get some pets in here. He's pushing the camera. It's this unhealthy, your body's actually responding in the right way. Like, this person does not feel safe to enter. We don't feel in a safe space. And so I don't actually get erect to be able to penetrate, because my body sort of knows something about the relationship where there's not safety. The other big cluster is, how are we moving towards what feels good for us? And this goes back to that societal question you asked me earlier, which is like, what's happening in society around sex? Learning how to feel what is pleasurable is a subtle body sensation. It's not a huge, like, earth-shattering, you're going to feel it, there's no other way, there's a neon sign. It's subtle movements from like, oh, wait, that feels pleasurable, and that feels good, and oh, that feels like there's space and room, and it's this gradual build. And that's one of the things porn does, is it's like suddenly you're shocked into pleasure, like you're shocked into your arousal, like forced into it, versus being able to feel it and let it build. And sometimes what happens for men in relationships is like, they don't want to hurt their partner, or they don't feel like their partner would like their fantasies, or they themselves don't know what turns them on, or they don't know how to ask for what they want, or their bodies, our bodies are always changing, really. And so the things that we like shifts. And so sometimes it's like, there's been such a huge shift. There's a really common place where people end up, men have ED show up, which is between like 29 and 31. There's not to like freak anybody out that's listening to this, that's a little bit younger. They're like, Keeley told me I have this thing at 29. But what I've seen in the, 14 years of working with men around this, is that my belief of what happens is that you suddenly get out of this, like, the wind blows and your cock is hard, and you enter into like real sexuality, where you need actually different experiences to get connected to your cock and your arousal. And so whether that's a deeper connection with your partner, and there's specific touches that you need. And it can be shocking for men to be like, well, I used to just like see a naked body and my cock would get hard. Or my partner used to like turn towards me and gently place her hand on my shoulder and my cock would get hard. And then that doesn't happen. Just this funny time frame, late 20s, early 30s. And then there can become this fear, this panic of like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting hard. Something's wrong with me. Do I have ED? Oh my gosh, I'm overusing porn. Right. So then people go down like the laundry list of what you can find. And what it really is just like your sexuality is evolving, and you're stepping into what's a more adult sexuality versus this more teenager sexuality. And you do often need more, which means you need more communication. You need more skills in order to guide your partner or guide yourself into that deeper places of pleasure. You're thinking about
it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because this seems to line up as well. And I'm thinking of metropolitan cities. This also seems to line up with the average age when people get married too. And people tend to get married once they're outside of that honeymoon period. So it's almost like, oh, you're entering into a serious relationship age 25, 26, 27. You're together 3 years. Yeah. People tend to want to get married around when they're 30, if we're on that traditional relationship escalator. Right. So then this is now marriage time. Oh gosh,
we weren't supposed to get married. Marriage always ends sex, right? And there's a lot of stories that come in around sex and marriage and long-term relationship. Yeah.
Right. And then I'm thinking as well about being established. This is the first time when you're not, you have more stuff You know, you have a lot more stuff when you're 30. You might have a car, you might have just got your condo, now the bills are important, or things just feel like
saving for things.
There's saving for things, there's pressure, there's life pressure. You're starting to think like, oh, we need to get in the position to have kids if we're not going to have them, or we are going to have them. We need to like start making these movements around our life. It does seem like, not just from a biological sense, but from a life admin sense.
Right. I believe it's the Saturn return. I wasn't going to go there because I'm from San Francisco, so we talk about these things. But yeah, it's there is stuff.
What is the Saturn return?
I don't want to talk too much because I am not an expert on these things.
Okay.
But it's this idea energetically that we've been moving out in a way and growing, and now we're coming back, and it's just a different. It's a transitional time in people's lives. So.
What, in that particular time period?
Yes, in that particular time period. The way it's always felt for me is that it feels like a very deep hormonal shift for people.
Okay.
And I think that may play a role too in why suddenly other things start to feel more important, right? Or different layers of our lives start to unfold. We start to gravitate towards different things.
And Keeley, do you think this is like a biological shift or a psychosocial shift? I'm really curious what one you think it is.
You know, my belief is it's always all of the above. I don't think that we can say it's this one thing or the other. You know, we are such complex beings. And Pancake. My dog is trying to go up behind the couch and she's going to hit the internet. Hey, come here. Come here. Come on. I think she's mad at me. I think about this a lot with the early ejaculation stuff. People want to know, like, is this psychological? Is this just the way I've been masturbating? What is this exactly? And, we're such complex beings. I don't think we can just say like, it's this thing or it's that thing. It's just, we're multifaceted. And I think what's true is that everybody is also different. We're talking about these things very generalized right now. And, one person may have felt like, my parents put so much pressure on me to have kids. And so I feel all this pressure. So now suddenly I need to get married because I'm not allowed to have children without getting married. And I feel like I've got to do this. And that puts a ton of weight into the person's decisions and why they end up living that way. Or your best friend got married and you feel left out. And so you just like pick the next person that walks by to get married to because you don't want to be the one person left.
Oh gosh. Don't do it, guys. Don't do it. There's no need for that. If you're listening to this, don't do it.
Right. But there's so many reasons. And, this is always my push for people getting into therapy or starting to do some personal self-reflection work is to try and understand the underlying motives behind the decisions that we're making, to start to explore them and understand more about why we're doing things. So we're not just doing them out of reaction, that we're actually having some consciousness around our life, the direction of our life, where we're going, what we want. All of those pieces.
Top tips for men listening to this, or their partners who have someone who is experiencing erectile dysfunction. What would you say do? What's your go through in terms of top things that you should be doing right now?
Yeah. So my number one go-to tip with all things related to performance is to have a conversation with your partner about it. If you're in a relationship and this is happening, sweeping it under the rug is going to make it feel even more enormous. It's having an actual conversation, and that can be really difficult for a lot of people, but it is the first place to start. And if you feel overwhelmed, then find someone that can help you have this conversation, whether it's going through a blog and reading the blog together, grabbing a book, reading a book together, seeking out a professional, but trying to put it away and act like it's not there is going to exacerbate this issue and make it feel stronger. The other piece with ED is, are you asking specifically if someone's in a couple? Because these are different if someone's single versus a couple. So you're in a couple.
Our audience are all couples Keeley. This is the coupley app, folks.
Right. But some, people listen to podcasts all over, and the advice is slightly different. So, is to start to discuss what are turn-ons. Like, what is sexy to you? What would be sexy to you? So for the man who's struggling with getting hard, it's like, can he start to get into contact with like, what would be sexy? And you don't have to know like, this is for sure the thing. It's more just opening up this conversation of like, hey, I'm wondering if this might be sexy for me. Because really the conversation is like, I feel disconnected from what turns me on most of the time. It's not like people are withholding information, trying to like hurt each other. I think there's this idea that like, oh, well, I have to add this into oftentimes partners of people who struggle with ED really feel like it's them. It's me. There's something about me that's not sexy. You're not turned on by me. I'm doing something wrong. And so I think in that initial conversation that you have, it's really saying like, look, this is something going on inside of me. I am still attracted to you. If that's true, I do still want to be with you. I still love your smell and the way you look, and getting really specific can be helpful there. Like, this specific thing about you turns me on. And then together getting curious. Where is my pleasure? Taking the pressure off that it's going to change after one conversation. It most likely won't. Change takes time unless we're using a pill to very quickly change things. But having that patience and opening up the conversation can be a really huge, huge pivotal place for many, many men around this. Because it does feel, the piece we haven't been talking about is what are the implications? Like, how do men feel when they're not getting hard? And it's, I'm not masculine enough. I'm not good enough. She's going to leave me. She's going to find sex elsewhere. Our relationship is fucked. Like, there's so many things that places that people go in their minds when they're not talking about it and they're scared.
It's absolutely, I think men are so competency based. Our competency is so important to us that anything that we're not competent at feels horrific. And I think it's one of those things that it's a really hard thing to explain. I'm not sure if women feel like it the same way. Maybe they do. No,
and I think it's because in heterosexual dynamics, for couples to have what is seen as successful sex, which again goes back to this initial question of like, what is this box we're all putting ourselves in? There is this huge pressure for men to get hard. Huge. It's like all consuming, creates depression, suicide. There's just it goes so deep in like, I am not a man. I am not lovable. I am not going to be able to be a good lover if I can't get hard. And I think that external show of like, we can also go into like how my cock looks, how big it is, the color, all of these things. Then it just goes like how hard it is when I'm soft, how hard it, or how big it is when I'm soft, all these things. There's so many components. It's like the attachment and what comes with all of these ways of relating to the cock, the phallus, how it gets hard or not hard, and how hard it gets, and how long it stays hard. It creates this huge momentum behind it. And I have a lot of compassion and a lot of empathy for men around that. And I think is why I love, my subspecialty, which is working with male performance struggles, because I do have a lot of empathy around how critically important that is for men.
And this empathy comes through in everything that you do. I got to go through your video course for the early ejaculation course.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So professional, guys. If this is something specifically, I think you have courses on all of them. The one that I got a sneak peek, early access, was the early ejaculation one. And I'd love for us to go through some of this, because I learned, again, the theme of the podcast is Tim learning new shit, despite being in relationship area for 4 years. It's like, wow, just learning really big, important things. It seems to be the theme of the week. The 5-step method.
Yes.
Around understanding early ejaculation. Could you please take the audience through this?
Through the 5 steps. Yes. So after working with men for many, many years on early ejaculation, one of the things I found is that there's so much struggle. Men who struggle with early ejaculation, there's an immense amount of shame. Immense. I would say of all of the performance related things, the early ejaculation creates the most withdrawal from society because of the shame. And I really can't think of any early ejaculator that I've worked with that has not carried this huge amount of like, I am never going to find someone. And if I like someone and they know how quickly I come, they're going to leave me right away. And so this model comes out of like my love for men and my hope that all men can feel connected to their arousal. So I'll just start with that little lecture speech. So the first step is breath. So breath is essentially the portal or the gateway into your body. And there's a very particular way that I teach people to breathe, to be able to access pleasure inside of their body and to notice what's happening and to sort of keep that connection open to the inside of your system so that you can make decisions where you want to go, essentially, in your arousal. The second step is what's called the anal breath. And that is learning how to breathe specifically into your asshole or the back part of your pelvic floor. I love the smile. Everyone's always like, Keeley, how do you say that with a straight face? I just do after many years. But the idea is that when we orgasm, there's involuntary pulses that happen inside of our whole pelvic floor, specifically our asshole. And that is one of the places oftentimes that people are tightening as they're moving into orgasm, and especially early ejaculators are really, really tight there. So learning how to breathe and relax actually helps to keep you in your arousal. And it gets more complex. We'll get into it in a second. But the next step is learning your arousal curve and anxiety curve. So we talked briefly about it earlier, but there's an imaginary scale from 1 to 10, 0 being not turned at all, not thinking about it, 1 being, yeah, I'm sort of curious, getting a little tingles, 4 being hard enough to penetrate, 9 being the point of no return, and 10 being orgasm. For early ejaculators, they're just going right up that. They're not moving through any steps. They're not feeling anything in their body. It's like, I get a little aroused and I jump right to orgasm. And oftentimes what's happening, and this isn't everyone, but this is 99% of the people that I've worked with, is that there's also the anxiety curve. And the anxiety curve is married to the arousal curve. And so as you go up higher in your arousal, you go up higher in your anxiety. And the way I talk about it is like once you're over a 5 on anxiety, your body is in sheer panic. You're in a fight or flight response. You're just trying to get away from whatever is happening. And the fastest route is to jump to orgasm. It's just the way that your body would naturally respond to getting out of an uncomfortable situation. So the idea there is being able to separate, being able to feel where you are in your arousal curve without the anxiety coming with it. And that can take a really long time to be able to separate those two, especially if they've been married together because you learned to masturbate quickly in your room or in the bathroom, fearful that you couldn't take your time. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why it can kick in. Then the fourth step is called learning to surf the sweet spot. So that's sort of marrying all these pieces together or keep getting them all working together. And you find the place where you're able to feel connected to your arousal and you're going up and down 2 levels. So say it's like you feel really comfortable at the 7, but you feel like, oh no, I'm getting up into the 7.5. It's starting to make me a little nervous. Am I going to jump to the orgasm? So you turn to your anal breath and you take that breath down and you would drop yourself then down to the 5. So you come back down. So you're like, oh, okay, I'm back in control. I don't feel like I'm heading over this edge. And then you let yourself move back up. And real mastery, when I talk about clients, like what does it look like to have mastered this, is that essentially you just change whatever you're doing to breathing into your asshole. You take 3 full breaths. You feel like your arousal drops down those 2 levels and you just go back into what you're doing. It's not stop, start. That's one of the really common things people talk about on the internet. We just stop and then you start again. It's not that, actually. You don't actually, in full mastery, need to even change the speed in which whatever you're doing. It's just the transition of like what your mind is doing and dropping yourself in. And then the 5th step, You're like, wow.
It's amazing. This is awesome. I love it.
And then the fifth step, we'll talk about something in a second, but the fifth step is learning to spread the energy all over your body. So a lot of times what happens now is like, there's so much focus on your cock. There's so much focus on your cock, and it is the pleasure center of your body. Your genitals are the pleasure center. And we want to be able to spread out the pleasure through the body so that your whole body gets to experience pleasure. And I normally talk about with clients, it's like, when you struggle with early ejaculation, you're not really feeling much pleasure. Like men will say like, I ejaculate, but it doesn't feel good. Like, and then the wave of shame comes after because this thing happened again. And so it's really about teaching men, like, how are we in your body? How are you letting the pleasure flow through you, through every part of you? So when you say, okay, let's go to that orgasm, which gets to be a choice now, that's the idea, that your whole body then gets to move into that pleasurable experience. And then you get that undulating wave of pleasure versus just like, oh, it happened, I didn't want it to happen feeling.
Lo and behold, Keeley helping men connect more to their feelings, more to their body. It's like it seems to be a trope that I've noticed in the relationship space, is that for us guys, a lot of things just seem to be around us being so disconnected with our inner selves.
Yeah. I don't know that that's gendered. I mean, I think culturally you're not given a ton of space, men or women. You know, women, I think there is this like, okay, we're talking specifically about male performance struggles, but lots of women have lots of stuff, and it is slightly easier to mask it, like we talked about earlier. But once you enter into a long-term relationship, it's no longer easy to mask it. You know, as a woman, you start turning away from sex, you don't want to engage anymore. It's not fun. You find yourself finding every other thing to do. Yeah. It's there for women as well.
Can you talk to me more about the sensation categories?
Tell me more about it. What do you mean?
This is fantasy, relationships, and overall sensation.
Ah, yes. Okay. Yeah, you're speaking to one of the parts in the what you learned from my course. Good student. Yes. So when I look at anytime I meet with a client, I'm always thinking, how is what they're telling me mapping into, amongst many things I'm thinking, mapping into a model I created called the Balanced Human Sexuality Model. So essentially, I just draw a circle. I divide it into 3 parts. One category is fantasy. Anticipation, creativity is sort of what I think about it as. You talked a lot about it, this brain space. Another category is relationships, love, intimacy. How are we doing connection? How are we letting our hearts be open in these moments? And what is happening in the sensation? I call it erotic embodiment in the sensation category. So there's these 3 categories: fantasy, relationships, and body awareness. Body awareness is the center is actually your genitals. So relationship center is heart, fantasy center is head. And the idea is, in my model, what I'm always thinking about is oftentimes when people come to me, one of those areas is really off. Like people are not connected to one of them. And then they're showing up in my office and it's like, yeah, of course you feel like sex isn't going well. Like you're either not mapping at all on here, or you're not connected at all with the sensations in your body, or those pieces. So with early ejaculation, oftentimes there is a disconnection from the actual physical body because it's so uncomfortable in there. There's so much anxiety. And so one of the first things which breath helps us do is go back into the body to feel what's happening from the inside out so that we have access to all that is in there. And I truly believe for sex, you know, the other categories are important and I don't want to diminish them because they are equally important. And to truly have great sex, it's not necessarily about learning a new skill. Like, yes, on the surface level, if you're given a blowjob, like you don't want to use your teeth unless you really know how to use your teeth and that's fun for your partner. But like in general, we don't want you using your teeth, right? So there is some skill, but then ultimately it's like, how are we able to let in sensation and to be able to connect with our bodies enough that as we touch another person's body or we engage with another person's body, that we can actually feel what it's like for them. And that comes from this deep seated experience of being able to be in our sensation body and feel our bodies, which means be here, be present, which is not common for many of us.
It's not common for many of us. And you've got some great breathwork exercises that you take people through. And as I was watching it, I was just thinking, like, we don't do this. Like, we just don't think about this as people. We don't look into it. We don't do this with our partner. We are just expected to not just have, like, not just, it is no longer just good enough just to have sex to create children. Right. We are looking at sex as a practice in our relationships, in these long, monogamous, often relationships, that this is a whole new thing for us trying to do. So we need new tools, I think. And I think this tool that you're giving folks is just so new, or it seems like it's probably not new. It's probably actually ancient. I'm sure there's like tantric stuff that goes back thousands of years, but it feels new, or maybe it just feels new to me. But it's very, very, very cool. Does this apply to delayed ejaculators as well? Is it this same pattern of connecting with sensation, connecting with your body, connecting with fantasy as well?
So the major difference between delayed and early ejaculation is what's happening in the body during the experience, because they're able to get into the arousal. They're in it. They're fully hard, no problem in it. And then it's like they're just in this like holding pattern. So in terms of like, how do you connect with moving forward in pleasure? Yes, that is very connected. How do you actually feel your body and know when you're moving forward, or when you want to move forward or need to move forward, or what are the signs that say like, this is it, go move forward? Again, like I said earlier, delayed it's just a beast. I mean, it is a beast. We could spend the next like 4 hours talking about my theories on delayed orgasm. And I'll self-disclose, I myself am a person who has struggled with delayed orgasm. I didn't find my orgasm till I was 23. And it was after like all of these crazy sex classes that I'd taken. And suddenly like it just showed up one day when I was masturbating in a bathroom. And that sounds way more wild than it was. But, there's so many ways in which people can get stuck in the delayed space. And a lot of it is that I've noticed with men is one of the first things that we do is we shift the way that they're masturbating. So we no longer say, you're going to use your hand. I say, we're going to use a sex toy for you, a sleeve. The fleshlight is the one most people know, because there is a dexterity, which is beautiful. Our hands are incredible. They're my favorite sexual thing. But there's so much dexterity to them that they can touch in certain ways that, somebody's body, anybody else's hands can't do actually. And so we need to remove the specific physical sensation that you're giving yourself, because to expect that your partner is going to know exactly the way that twist and not the head, and just a little firmer grip and then a little softer. And then also, I mean, there can be these really elaborate ways that people have found to get into their orgasm when they struggle with delayed ejaculation through masturbation, that we've just got to say like, okay, your body and your brain learned that as the path, and we need to give you some more tools. I'm all about like more tools, some more tools. Can your toolkit get bigger? Can we help you have a bigger toolkit so that you have all the things you need when you're playing, basically? And so normally I say like, let's bring in this sex toy. And so you're not actually touching your cock and you're starting to feel your body from the inside out. And most men who struggle with delayed ejaculation will be like, I can't come now. Like it's that. They become so reliant on that.
Boom. Diagnosed.
Right. And that doesn't fix the problem, because normally I say, give me 6 months, right? Like there's lots of other things. But that can have a huge impact, as well as removing porn. Because if we go back into my balanced human sexuality model and we start to talk about fantasy, porn is a very, very small part of fantasy. It is fantasy. But oftentimes when there's an overuse of porn, which is also happens most of the time with folks who struggle with delayed orgasm, they have no access to their own fantasies. They cannot create them. You ask them, like, masturbate without porn, and they're like, I'm not turned on, I'm not aroused, there's no fantasy in there. So there has to be work. Think of it like paint by numbers. Like porn is paint by numbers. Like you just fill in the gaps. You familiar with paint by number?
Yeah.
You know what that is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Some people don't know. And it's this idea of like, no, here's a blank page. What do you want to put on it? Can that be exciting? Can you fill that in? And that can be daunting and scary for people. So those are like the top surface level things for delayed orgasm. The deeper piece is trust. Can I trust that this person really wants me here? Can I trust that I'm lovable? Can I trust that it's okay to be myself? Can I trust that it's okay to let go? Which is a really, really deep question. And a lot of times is unconscious in people's internal worlds, actually. They're not aware that somewhere inside of them, they don't trust that they can let go, which is really what orgasm is. I mean, it's these involuntary contractions that you really can't control. So it's like finding the safety within themselves.
And within the relationship, or is this normally on the inside?
Oftentimes, my experience, not always, but normally the trust stuff goes back into childhood. It's a deeper wound of something that was learned very early on. Yeah.
Amazing. Keeley, this has been such a great conversation. I so appreciate you spending all this time with us.
Yeah.
A real deep dive into this topic. And I think this has been so valuable just for the couple audience listening. We know this is something that affects everyone at some point. And so I hope that this conversation reaches our community, and I hope it reaches the folks that need it.
Yeah.
How can people connect with you, discover more of your work?
Yeah.
Where do they find you?
Yes. So the best way to find me is at my website, which is KeeleyRankin.com, KeeleyRankin. And I'm on Instagram too, at Keeley Rankin Intimacy Coach.
Amazing. Keeley,
and I also want to put a little push. We're working on a new course. It's going to be out in the middle of May. Really, really excited about it. It's called Sex Class. And so it's not going to be super heavy in this male performance struggle. We'll touch on it briefly, but it's going to actually be sort of all of much of what I've learned in the last 14 years of working with people. I'm like, I'm just going to sink this into a course and give people a bunch of stuff so that they can get out of their heads, into their bodies, start having fun, and enjoy sex for the rest of their lives, hopefully.
Amazing. Let us know once it's launched. Okay. We'll go discover it, and we'll share it with the couple community as well.
Maybe I'll come back on and I'll chat with you about it. We can talk all about that.
That would be amazing, Keeley. Let's do that. We'll do another deep dive into those high quality, beautiful video courses.
Thank you.
Seriously, this has been a great chat. I so appreciate you taking us on this journey. As you know, I'm pretty new to this stuff, but you make me feel so comfortable, and I'm sure you make all your clients feel so comfortable as well. So I just want to acknowledge that and say a huge thank you. And thank you for the amazing work that you're doing. This is a huge thing for so many people. And I'm sure just having someone like you in this space, helping them through it, is a really, really amazing thing. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Appreciate it a lot.